So to make a tree diagram, let's use the same example that you used in the previous slide of making a sample space. So here's the sample space, and hopefully you got this answer because the question said you flip the coin first so you can get heads or tails, and then you roll the dice. So then the choices for a 6-sided dice are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then with heads, and then you could get the tails first and then get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. So the directions are in the slide to the left of your screen. And I'm just going to write out this same information, but display it as a tree diagram. So the first thing we want to do is think carefully about what our events are. And so the first event is flipping a coin. And there are different kinds of coins, but in this case, we're just going to call it heads and tails, one side or the other. So that has two outcomes. There are two options for what can happen. And then the second event, or the second stage of our experiment, is rolling a dice. And again, there are a lot of different kinds of dice. This is a 6-sided dice. And just rolling one of them. So we can get the numbers 1 through 6. So that's what we're going to do. The first event, we have 2 options. And then the second event, we have 6 options. So you start by just making a dot. Nice big dot. And then you make branches. This is your starting point. So this is where we start. We always just start at a big dot. And then we're going to go into our heads or tails choice. So we have 2 options, heads or tails. And what's a good idea at the end of the branch to say what you're ending with. So you can write out the whole word or just use a letter, or you can use a picture, but you need to know what you're talking about. And then the second event is rolling a 6-sided dice. So from here, from heads, we're going to make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 branches because there's 6 options. And then from here, from tails, again, we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're going to make 6 branches. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then from tails, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And this is our first event here, where the first branch. And then this here is our second event with the second time we branch out. And then we have to put what each option is. So here it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's rolling a 1, rolling a 2, rolling a 3, rolling 4, rolling 5 or 6. And here the same 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, the last thing we have to do is we have to put what the probability of each event is on the branch. Okay, so I redrew this so it's a little bit bigger. And now what we need to do is we need to put the probability of each occurrence. So when we start here, we flip heads or tails. Assuming it's a fair coin, there's a half of a chance that you can get heads and half of a chance that you get tails. And now, we've changed it up. So the second event was rolling a 6-sided dice. And now, when you roll a dice, getting a 1, there's a 1 out of 6 chance. Rolling a 2, 1 out of 6, 1 out of 6, 1 out of 6. So in this particular example, There's 6 branches and it's 1 out of 6. Here, there are 2 branches and it's 1 out of 2, 1 out of 2. That doesn't always happen. And this is a pretty simple example. I'll show you a more complicated example later. So the last thing is, so let's say we want to know what's the probability of flipping a coin and getting heads and then rolling a 3. So if we were going to do that, this would be the probability of getting heads and then a 3. And what you do is you multiply all the fractions along the path that you drew. So again, this is a simple example. So we have a half times a sixth. So the probability of this is 1/2 times 1/6 is 1 out of 12. And as a matter of fact, that's what all these are because they're all the same. So the next example will be a little bit more challenging.